Hi guys, we will be presenting on the Overtone series on Trumpet today. I'm Jordon Gyarmathy.
And I'm Darren Dutton. Take it away, Jordon.
What is the Overtone series? So in terms of physics, we're talking about like the waves traveling through our instrument as we play something. The first wave is going to be half of a sine wave, and then we're going to do another full sine wave, and then it's just breaking down the instrument into different divisions from there. So then you'd have like 3 different nodes inside the thing, and then 4, and so on. Basically, the first giant half of a sine wave, that's going to be your fundamental pitch. That's going to be your lowest pitch that you can produce naturally on the instrument. And then your first full sine wave, that's going to be your first harmonic. So this applies to any string instrument or wind instrument, and almost anything that resonates as well. But for like our musical purposes, like let's just say it applies to all our instruments. So what does it sound like? So here I have an example of the Overtone series starting on C. So we have that C3, then up an octave to C4, and then up a fifth to that G4. Then we go up a fourth to a C5, and so on. It's all kind of, if you look at it, it's like kind of arpeggiating like a C7 chord, and then up to the top, it's almost like scalar.
Let's really dig into that for a second. So back to the sine waves that Jordon brought up before. Like Jordon said, the fundamental is half of a sine wave, just one peak. If you take the amount of space that the fundamental filled and put a full wave there instead, so that's a peak and a valley, then you get the first harmonic, the octave. Then the second harmonic is 1.5 waves, which is 3 units of the initial fundamental. That means that if the fundamental was at a frequency of 1 hertz, so that's 1 cycle per second, then the first harmonic would be 2 hertz, the second harmonic 3 hertz, and so on like that. So if we take this series and make the fundamental 131 hertz, which is right around a C3, then we can double it, triple it, and so on to get the harmonic series for that. This right here is the harmonic series if you start from a C3. Right, so as you listen, you can notice that the pitches are getting closer and closer to each other as they go up. So the tricky thing is, the notes that I listed on the left side there, they're about right for those frequencies, but they're not exactly, at least not using equal tempered tuning, which is what you'll see on a tuner or hear from a piano. Notice when we get to E5 that the note we find in the harmonic series is a bit flat of the E we would have in equal tempered tuning. So if you've ever been in a chamber group and the professor told you to figure out who had the third and then to bring it down a bit, this is exactly why. That's also why when we play a D on trumpet below the staff, you need to bring in the third valve slide, because that D is the second harmonic of the G fundamental that you get when you put down these fingers. We'll get into that later, but that second harmonic is by default a little bit flat, and you need to bring it sharp. I'm going to drop this table in the chat as a PDF if you want to take a look at it. I think it's kind of interesting.
So if we look at this as like trumpet players, do we notice anything? Yeah, so those are your open partials. We're going to start with that like C at the bottom of the staff, and technically we can hit that pedal C open. It's going to be really difficult, but we can do it. And that is the lowest fundamental note that's going to resonate on your instrument. From there, you know, like open C, G above it, C above it, and then you can hit the E, G, and if we're pushing it, we can do B flat, C, and above that. So this also applies to other instruments. Like you'll notice on the trombone, if you guys know how to play some trombone, your fundamental pitch is going to be that B flat, and then you have the F above that, and then fourth above that you have another B flat, and then you keep going with that D and the F, and below that first fundamental like B flat, you have the actual fundamental of the instrument, the pedal B flat. That one also is a little tough to hit, but that's just the way brass instruments work. So this also works for horn. So like horn's first fundamental is an F1, which is super low, which means when horn players are playing, they're usually playing up higher in their harmonic series than we are. How can this help us? So this actually is really useful. You'll notice it in lip slurs and exercises. You'll also notice it when you're doing alternate fingerings. Like doesn't really make sense how our instrument can like put down different fingerings and get the same note, but we'll explain that in a bit. And then also understanding other instruments in their fingerings, and we're going to get to that next slide. So how do fingerings actually work? The valve, basically when you depress it, you make the instrument longer. So it's lowering the fundamental pitch of the instrument. For instance, the second valve, when you lower it, you're bringing the instrument down a semitone. And then the first valve, 2 semitones, third valve, 3 semitones. We don't use third valve alone a lot because we can make the same pitch more in tune just by using the second and first valve together to make 3 semitones. And that kind of gets to the next point where you can make different combinations of valves to get different intervals to drop the pitch by. Like, for example, first valve and third valve, that would be 2 semitones and then 3 semitones, 5 semitones, which is a perfect fourth lower. So if I'm playing like the low open C and I put down 1 and 3, we're going to end up getting G below that. So alternate fingerings. Here's how they can work. So let's take G4 on the staff, for example. We can play that open. If we go like C4 and then that G right above that, we can play that open. We can also play that with 1 and 3 down. If we're doing lip slur exercises, you might see that. So we can go like D to the G. So how does that work? That doesn't really make any sense. G4 can be the second overtone when we are playing open, because our open first fundamental, that's going to be that C3. And then that C4 is going to be our first overtone. And then G4, a fifth above that, that's going to be our second overtone. And then that same G4 can be the third harmonic, third overtone of the 1 and 3 fundamental, which would be G2. So G2, go up an octave, that's our first overtone. Now we have G3. Now we go up a fifth from that, so we have D4, and then we go up a fourth from that, and we get G4. So that would be our third overtone in that series. So G4 can be fingered both ways, and it's just as valid. We're just playing it on the part of different harmonic series. The overtone series is epic.
And now we present the overtone series being epic.
Now if you want to just go up. Yeah. That's all I can do. That's insane!